Hello. Welcome to the SmartHelping.com live modeling stream. Today is Wednesday. I'm a little late. Sorry about that. Let's jump in here. So I plan on doing inventory tracking in exclusively a Google Sheet build. So live modeling, inventory management in Google Sheets. So that's what I'm doing here. We're going to build this all live from scratch. Um, suggestions welcome if you're in the live chat. I will look at that. Um, let's see, inventory management. Oh wait, we'll put in smarthelping.com. Okay. Before I get started here, don't forget to like the video, subscribe. More importantly, check out smarthelping.com. This is where I build all different kinds of financial models and templates and spreadsheets and tracking tools for all different kinds of industries. If you check out the financial models tab at the top, you can check out all the categories, all the different templates in each category. You can also buy everything on the site for $9.99. I've got well over, I think probably over 120 unique templates for all kinds of industries, different startup models, real estate underwriting tools, industry specific financial models, joint venture distributions, structures, accounting and finance templates and spreadsheets. So what I'm doing today, this inventory manager, it will go into the accounting bundle with no increase in price. It'll be $45 too, by the way. It will go into the small business playbook bundle, this here, which already includes a bunch of different inventory trackers. So I've done inventory trackers in the past, but never exclusively built for Google Sheets. And there's some formulas and things I want to take advantage of in here that should provide some nice summary. It's kind of like the accounts payable and receivable. I built it in Excel, but there's also a Google Sheet version, and the Google Sheet version has some cool and improved flexibilities over the Excel version. So I believe we can do a lot here with this. So inventory management. Let's think about this. Number one, we need a log. So every time a inventory movement has to be entered into the system, we need a database. Now in the Excel versions, I had a tab that was an input card, and you could fill it out, hit enter, and then the macro would move it over to the database and fill out the rows like that. But for Google Sheets, we're just going to have it be a straight database on one tab, and you could just fill out the rows manually. If you need to update anything, you just go to the row and update it. Pretty simple. Now, what's going to be some comments I've had over the life of doing the inventory managers was um, I've had some things about expiring inventory batches. Now, an inventory batch, so I can do logic for that on the actual database tab here, and then I could probably summarize that in another sheet. So we might have some expiration logic, which may or may not be relevant for your business, but at least it'll be there. And then, we'll see as we go along. The whole point of this is you want to be able to enter inventory you've received, enter inventory as it leaves, and you need to track things accordingly, and we'll slice and dice the data and do all kinds of fun stuff. Um, and note this Google Sheet link here, when I'm actually done with this template, this will be deleted and I'll have a new version, obviously. Even though, people probably aren't going to take the time to write this code down, but they might. So just know that won't, in the live version, production version, that will be removed. And right now, it's locked, so no one can even access this anyway right now. Alrighty. Let me go over here real quick. Okay. So inventory management. When you enter an inventory, you need to have some relevant data points. Number one, the date. Let's center all this. And we'll also freeze the top row. And anytime you're really tracking anything for a business, like it could be job tracking, inventory, payables, receivables, you're going to structure a database and then you're going to query that database to give the reports and summaries. That's kind of the basic way to do it. So here we have, let's call this the transaction date. And note, a lot of people are probably going to have starting balances. To account for that, you would just enter each SKU in a add entry for them. So that would essentially give you a starting balance for all the different SKUs that you have that you're going to track. Okay, so transaction date or date of entry exit is better. And we'll just highlight this column, data, we'll do data validation, and we'll call these all date. And we will reject input if it's not a date as well. And we can show validation help text. So now we can delete the validation from this cell. So if I'm in here, I can just double click this and now I can choose a date with the validation. Now if I put something that's not a date, it doesn't let me. So that's a cool thing, cool validation trick there with Excel or with Google Sheets. Now the formatting shouldn't really matter because you're going to be picking it from a calendar, but let's see. This is the most common. Oh, we don't want time in there. This is actually, I like doing this kind of work actually the best. But financial modeling pays the bills, like doing startup models and stuff. But this is actually what I really like to do the most. Format. Oh, date. There we go. Okay. So you enter a date for the inventory being entered or when it leaves. You're going to do a SKU. Now on the SKU, we'll have drop-down lists for improved or reduction of errors. So drop-downs, and the first one is going to be SKU. And so here you enter all of the SKUs, and so I can put ABC, AB1, etc. So you just enter all the SKUs, and we'll freeze the top row of this as well. And you just enter all the different unique SKUs that you're going to track in this inventory system here. Now what we do with that is on the column B, we'll go data validation. And I want to pull from this whole list from A2 down. And what's nice about Google Sheets, and this is where Excel needs to fix itself, is it will only populate in the dropdown that where there's non-blank cells, which is very good. So here you can see I only have these three. If I add something here, like whatever, now it updates it now, that's an option. Whereas in Excel, you have to define a range and it will show the entire range in the dropdown, all the blank area, even if it's not, even if it's blank. So it's kind of annoying. Now, sometimes I've gotten Excel to work, but it's like tricky. It like doesn't work all the time. So that's one thing Google Sheets really has done well is the drop down selection being dynamic. So you can have 1,000 SKUs in here or 5. It doesn't matter. Um, you'll be able to populate it in the database tab. So this is an entry, this is entry. What else is important when you're tracking inventory? Well, mainly the important things are um, the amount of inventory, for sure. So the amount of inventory we want, that's probably the most important thing. So count being either this is the total of that SKU being entered or exiting. Count, or actually let's call this number of units. And this is just an entry. So here, let's say let's just pick a time. Let's say on July 7th, 2022, SKU ABC, we received, let's say 500 units, or no, let's say 5,200. We'll format this. Checking for messages. Okay, so number of units, got date, SKU, unit movements. Now, let's think about this. There's a couple ways. So if we want to enter an add entry, we could say any positive is a positive, negative is a negative, or we could separately define if it's a buy or a sell. I mean, not a buy. Yeah, I mean if it's an add or a depletion. So, what is easier for the user? I think it's add or deplete, because then you don't have to worry about putting a minus sign or plus amount in here. You just put the amount of units, and then in here, now it does require a little bit more formulation now, because I can't just sum up C. I'll have to sum C based on the value of D and A in some cases, and B in some cases, or B in all cases. So date of entry, exit, SKU, number of units that I want. Is it a um, add or depletion? So are you adding to the inventory or are you depleting? And we'll do a drop down there. And these have to be hard coded because the formulas are going to be based on them. So you can't change these. And it's going to be select add or deplete. We'll reject the input if it's not any of those two, and we'll show some help text. Add or deplete. So that's pretty clear. So here, adding. Adding. If you're going to deplete an item, deplete. I think that's pretty good. Pretty clear. You can't really confuse that. Add is added inventory. Deplete is removing inventory. And we could put a note in here. Add means increase inventory, and deplete means reduce inventory by the number of units in column C. All right, so yep, pretty straightforward there. We have some nice logic. Okay. Next, we need the amount. So number of units add or deplete. And actually, let's put this ahead. This should probably be in the front. Let me update my text as well. So this should be column D now. So add or deplete, number of units. You want to keep track of the value, or you might want to. So we have, now we could do value per unit and then do an array formula that multiplies column D and E together all the way down. Or we could just say the total cost of inventory. Now, I've done another model for figuring out the right. Let's say you have SKU ABC. Let's say you have some coming at 5,200. Let's say you have some coming at 2,000, and let's say the price on these was $3 a unit, and the price on these was 250. So you add, and then let's say you now sell some of your, or deplete some of ABC. Let's say this is deplete now, and you want to deplete 1,000. Well, now what's your price? And that right there, I've built one of the best models I've ever built to solve this problem, but we're not going to be able to use it in this context. Um, it's an accounting tool. It's the cost of goods sold, this one. So this uses first in, first out methodology, and you can put in your list of orders here and your sales, and it will automatically find the right cost of goods sold per unit based on first in, first out accounting methodology. But that's the whole, it takes a whole spreadsheet to figure that out. We can't do that in this inventory manager. It's just not going to work. So if I want to track the value of inventory, I'm just going to have to define a weighted average price. So here in this case, maybe you'll do, if you bought some at, uh, well, I could maybe do a running calculation that shows the average, but then if you have outdated information, you don't want to pull from like data 3 years ago to figure this out. Um, let's think about this. I think so the way I did it in the other sheet was in Excel is I allowed the user to define when you're calculating the value of inventory, I allowed a selection of start and end date, and based on the start and end date, it will look at the average price of all the ads, and that's your average, or the weighted average price of all the ad transactions between the date range, and then that's going to be the basis for the current value of the inventory. So weighted average method, which is not first in, first out, but trust me, there's no way we're implementing first in, first out with this. It's just, there's no possible way. It's just not going to happen. But we could do average price, and all this is relevant for calculating the value of inventory that exists, which is that's really secondary. The main use of this sheet is going to be to know, okay, how much of X, Y, and Z inventory do I have at any one point in time? And then we might do an expiry calculation as well. And let me put that in the beginning here. Actually, let's just go copy, paste. So this is going to be potentially date of expiry if relevant. So let's say this expires here. So we'll do some formulas to figure to show some logic based on this. All right. So let's see. Now, date of expiry is also going to be complicated with multiple buys of the same SKU. If you bought this and then another date you buy the same thing, and then you want to say, well, it's been 2 years Uh, you've got how much of this is expired, how much of this is expired. So what I'll have to do is it'll be a filter formula and it's gonna show like a list and it'll say, okay, you've got SKU from purchase X, here's the purchase date, here's the expiration date, and then it'll only pull up if it's within X days of the expiration, and it'll just show you a list of all the different items that meet that criteria for that SKU. Or we could do full expiration, um, like to list all of the SKUs that are have expirations that are either past. Now you won't know if you sold of that SKU sold out or not. But if it's just a unique SKU, it will help. So it's going to be dependent. It might help. It might not. It depends on the exact situation. We'll see what we can do when I get into the summary and reporting parts of this. We got a couple viewers in here. Very nice to see you guys. Um, Fun stuff we're doing here with inventory management. Okay, so date of entry, expiry SKU, now the price. So I think what I have to do is I have to decide how relevant is this sheet going to be to calculate the value of inventory. Is it even relevant? If it is relevant, there's a lot more stuff that has to happen and it gets messy. However, it might not be relevant and we could just do all tracking of count of unit and that's it. Well, I really wish I had feedback on customers that actually weren't going to use this and I could figure that out, but I don't. So I think we do a price per unit. And because I do want to report on a monthly basis the purchase total every month, so we're going to have to know that. It's just going to be hard to calculate when inventory leaves um, with changing prices over time. I think the only way is that logic where we have, okay, calculate the inventory value of the current inventory based on pricing from dates X to Y. And I think that's the only way that's really possible to do this. That makes sense. Okay. Um, and I don't know if I talked about it, but whenever I set this up, the way you actually purchase this template and can use it is, I'll list it on smarthelping.com. And if you buy it, it'll be $45. And once you buy it, you'll get access to the link, which will be a view only link, not this link. It's going to be a different one. And then once you do that, you could go to File, make a copy, and that's how then you'll have your own editable version. Okay, so we define price per unit. Now this is going to be a formula, total cost. However, I know this is going to happen. It happens all the time. People are going to say, "Well, I bought 5,200 units for 3,000 bucks," and they don't want to calculate the price per unit. But they might. Now I'm trying to think, is there a way to do this without putting price per unit in here? I believe, so if I delete this and just go total cost, let's say it was 555. Now, a deplete entry has no cost basis. I mean, it does, but it's going to be, you can't really calculate that. We can calculate it elsewhere based on different time frames, and then what we'll have to do is then we can say this will be automatic calculation now. So I guarantee you will be able to enter the units in the total cost without much hassle. You'll know those numbers. The price per unit you might not, so we'll make that the formula. So watch this array formula, and we want to do price per unit. So F2 to F divided by E2 to E. And there's your price per unit. And then we could go if A2 to A equals blank, then blank. Let's put some other dates in here. Now, there's your price per unit. And this is a formula. And what I'll do to make this really clear, formula, entry. These are all entries. So entries will make blue. Formulas will be some other color. What's a good one? I guess black is fine. These don't have to be bold. So it's very clear. Okay, you've got data entries here. Formula, don't touch this. Now, if you mess up one of these or decide to put data in column G, it's going to, like if I put data here, watch what happens. Reference error. Could not expand because you're overwriting data in G17. So if you put any data in here, it doesn't work, but it's already calculating for you based on your total cost in units purchased. Here's your cost per unit for add entries. Now depletion, in the inventory value calculation, we would say add, deplete, and there'd be, what is this, 72, so there'd be 6,200 units left. The value of those 6,200 units would be an average of, based on the average price per unit between these two, the weighted average price. So you'd have to add up all of these costs and divide it by the total of these units, and you get your weighted average price. And that would be the value of the units that are left. And I think that's the only way to do this with any kind of degree of accuracy. Alrighty. So this is looking pretty good so far. Units, cost, formula. Maybe we'll italicize this too so you know it's a formula. What else do we need for data entry? These really, when you're doing this kind of stuff, the column headers and column organization is like the most important thing to get right. Alrighty. So what's next here? Nice, we got a couple more viewers in here. We're doing inventory management in Google Sheets. What's happening? I'm just looking at something. By the way, on a side note, I've been doing Google AdWords and it's insane. Just as a side note. Alrighty. So what other column headers are going to be relevant here to do our summary? So we know the date, we've got expiration date, the SKU, add or deplete, number of units, cost, price per unit. What else do we need here? I'm trying to think of. So we could do placement, but I think that's for who's going to use this. you probably don't need to know like a sub level of categorization. Oh, however, definitely location. So adding it to X location, removing it from X location, and adding it to Y location. Yes. So this definitely natively wants to work with multiple locations for sure, if possible. Or you could have like 5 locations and then a warehouse, and you just do entries based on that. It's fine. So let's see, where do we want to put the location? Probably up at the front. And that'll be another drop down. So we've got SKUs and we've got locations. And what we can do is say data validation, and we'll target that whole column B there. And we can say warehouse, location 1, location 2, etc. You can plug in whatever is relevant to your situation. Yeah, we definitely want location movement ability. And now if it's a sales transaction and you want to track all sales, you can have one of these locations be just labeled as sales. And then everything entered into a sale location is your sales. And you would also have to still enter that they left. So like SKU was added to sales, and then another row for the same amount, but it was depleted from whatever other. So 2 entries to define that. Now you might say, well, why don't you put location enter? Well, hold on. We might be able to do that if we say on the same transaction where it's coming and going. Now, hold on. How would that work with the add and deplete? Unless this is always add entry. So whatever the amount of units is entered, this is the location it's adding to or leaving from, and this would be location it's adding to. Now, hold on, let's think. Does that make any sense? Let's think about this. This could actually be, because I've definitely heard of that a lot, where people wanted to not have to make 2 full entries for the same, like if I moved uh, something from the warehouse to location 1 on this date, I would have to do, 1 row, and then to have it leave the warehouse, and then another row to add to that location. Is it possible to do all that in a single row? That would be very good if I could figure that out. Let's think about this. So if this were the leave uh, inventory left from, so leave from warehouse, add to add to, and we'll just use the same terms we've been using. So deplete. Now this would be cool if we can figure this out. So we deplete, let's say just an example, we deplete 5,200 units from the warehouse, and they're getting depleted from the warehouse, and they're being put into, hold on, and let's say they're being put into location 1, or maybe they're being sold. So you could put like, this is just sold. Okay, so we reduce here, we add here. Now the question is, when we're see, this is hard. I'm trying to think about how we do the overall aggregate calculation of, okay, how much of SKU ABC do we have at each location? Or in total across all locations, how much of ABC SKU is left? And to figure that out, we have to add all of these. So these are all add entries. We'd have to reduce depletion, but then whatever's designated as the sold place would actually be gone. And then you'd have to define a location for what's actually what sold means. So I think because of that reason, I don't know. I don't know if it'll work. So right now, if I wanted to, let's say if I wanted to calculate the inventory, let's do another one of these. So let's say, so here we removed here, added to location one. Let's say then I did some of those got added to location two, and then location two got sold. Now, can I calculate the balance of inventory at each place and in total for SKU ABC? So let's do in aggregate. So if I want to do inventory value of ABC, I would say, okay, ifs, sum if units, if the SKU is here, and then what? Total units if the SKU matches. I guess you'd have to continue to have column F then. You'd add everything that says add. So we've added here. No, because technically inventory deplete could be a deplete. Nope. I don't think that's going to work. That's not going to work. I tried. We're going to have to just say there's a location. Every time there's an add or deplete entry, you put add or deplete, and you pick where it's going to or from. So if you were to move inventory into the warehouse, you can do an add. If you're going to move inventory out of the warehouse, you would basically have to copy the date, go warehouse, same SKU, and you would do deplete and how many are depleting. And that way, I can then know um, warehouse only has, now at this point, 3,200 left, but I depleted, so I added this little warehouse. I depleted some from the warehouse and I added that to location whatever. So there was my initial, starting balance of that SKU at the warehouse. Then I want to say it's moving, so here it leaves the warehouse and it gets added to location two. And then I could calculate the inventory based on summing up the units. I want to sum up all the add units minus all the depletion units, right? So I have 5,200. I subtract 5,200 here. So minus 2,000, or sorry, subtract 2,000 from 5,200. So technically, at this point, after row 4, all I have is 3,200 units. And then I add a th well, if I'm subtracting 2,000 here, I'm adding let's say I add 1,000 here and 1,000 to another location, or whatever the case, or 2,000 to all one location. So now, in theory, I actually have the same units. I have 5,200. It's just now 2,000 of them are in location 2. And then if you sell from location 2, you do, pick your sell date, whatever, it doesn't have expiry. You say location 2 for SKU ABC, deplete, and I sell 1,000. So now, in my total aggregate, I'd have 5,200 plus 2,000 added, minus 2,000, minus 1,000. So 52 minus 2 plus 2 minus 1,000. So in the whole feeder, I'd have, in theory, at SKU ABC, there would be 4,200 left. And then I can also do a balance for each location. So the warehouse would have 3,200. Location 2 would have 1,000. In total, 4,200. And that's the total at each location. And then you can do this across all these different SKUs. You can have different SKUs having these transactions in all different warehouses, and we can report on that. Okay, so that makes sense. This is kind of how the multiple inventory tracking or multiple location inventory tracker works from Excel. It's just now it's in a Google Sheet format, and it doesn't have a macro or anything, which is, in my opinion, a bit cleaner. Um, Sorry, I'm getting a bite to eat. So let's see. Any comments, questions? Oh, well, we had 3 viewers at one time. Cool. I knew this was going to be a more popular build, and I can't wait. Like I said, next week I'm doing one more integration of a 3-statement model for the vending machine business. After that, all the streams are going to be something like this, where I'm just building something from scratch, and that's what this stream is going to be every time or every day. So, can't wait for that. Now, what do we? So we have this set up. This makes sense. SKU. I'm trying to think if we need any other category or column headers. Also, this is now column F. So we got add deplete, SKUs, locations, that, total cost. I think it makes sense better, yeah, to do the total cost in the column and total units, and then the formula will automatically calculate with this array. Let me put a note here. This is a formula, is an array formula in cell H3. Don't overwrite, or H3 won't calculate. Now, the nice thing about this is actually you don't need H at all. It's just kind of informing you of what your average price was. But this won't be used. So if it is overwritten for whatever reason, it won't matter, because all we're really looking at is the units and total cost to figure out valuation. Alrighty, what else? We definitely will have some extra fields if you want to just have those be, you can put a filter on this so that maybe you just want to filter some different things to see, or you want to make your own reports and you want different data points to be tracked. Now there is some other stuff I want to do, at least. So the expiration, We can put days until expired, and I can use a array formula. I believe this should work. Array formula, and then I want to do B3 to B minus today function. And in theory, that should tell you how many days you have left until expiration. And it does. And that's awesome. So that'll work. Let's also do if A3 equals blank, then blank. Whoops. If A3 to A. Now, if there, actually, let's do B as a source, because if there is no expiration, then this should be blank anyway. Okay. Now we can see by purchase tranche how many days until it expires, if it's relevant. If it's not relevant, you can just zero this out and it's fine. And then the report that's referencing that will just be zeroed out. Okay, and we'll put, so this is also a formula. We'll put this as a italicized. So formulas, you don't do anything. These are all data entry row columns. And then we'll do a simple formula that filters, and we can automatically show anything that's expiring within X days or is past expiry by whatever days. And it'll just list each and we won't need depletion. So obviously this, like a depletion entry, won't have an expiration, but the add entries will. And we can probably do some summaries on that to show how many of that item has sold since it's been purchased. I think that would be the right calculation, but we'll see. Okay, what else for inventory? We've got location, SKU, plus or minus the total amount, total cost. We're not really concerned with the value sold. However, I will do reports that allow you to pick the location, so you could just in theory say anything that was depleted. You can define the value of those things sold on the report, and it'll just show you your revenue. But that's kind of that's beyond a bit beyond the scope of tracking inventory. We mainly just want to track and know how much inventory is at any given location at any time, and what has been the transactions of inventory over, like, on a monthly basis. And that all those reports will be able to do no problem with this logic, so that's fine. Alrighty. Uh, so I can't think of anything else. I wonder, so I could put, thinking if it's possible to show the current balance of a given item on this tab. So if we put, like, let's say we wanted to know before we do an entry, how much of this SKU is in the warehouse, how much is, or in total. Let's see, would this make sense? I'd probably query from the other report tabs that I'm going to build, actually, rather than put it right onto here. So I can do like a lookup and it'll look up basically on these different metrics how much of the SKU currently exists, and it would factor in all the data that's on this tab. So then when you go to fill in something, when you put the location of the SKU, something will pop up over here saying, okay, before the, well, it'll show what happens before you put anything else in the depletion or units, and then after you put that, it'll update. I think that's probably good to know. So this will be an add from count from unit report. Let me just make this in yellow, so that'll be a calculation. So then you can kind of look here, and you can maybe use the next row as a test and say, okay, how much of this SKU exists? So I can see it right here. There's this much at, and actually I could probably do it on a basis where it says there's that much at whatever location you put here, and also another column that says the total across all everywhere based on all the ads, less all the depletions. Okay, so I think those are useful. What else do we want here? I think that's it. Man, 23 viewers. Very good. Do I continue or tomorrow? What is today? It's only Wednesday. I can stream tomorrow still. And Friday. All I got to do is post. So the e-commerce update video I got to post because that was finished and cleaned up today. So I got to post that. I guess I could work on this Thursday and Friday as well. Okay, so let's think if there's any other columns that we want here, or any other logic that would need to be built. I think the expiry thing's pretty cool. These automated calculations are good. Oh, so what we could do is on the drop downs, um, for a given SKU, you can put um, you can put a like a minimum level, and as soon as you see, like if you enter the SKU and it's got that minimum level, like we can do another one here that says min, and then you could put units here. So SKU ABC 20, and that means essentially if it ever gets below 20, you need to order more. And you can assign different levels to each SKU. Assigned. And I think that's probably important because you want to see what's my minimum, how how much room do I have? Let's see, and that would be not on a location basis. So hold on, remove this. That'd be on a all unit count. So if there's, ABC has X units, this is the min level. How far, um, and we could put room. What's a good word? the difference between the amount you have and the minimum that you never want to go below, which we could put. This is like safety stock, and then I want to put uh, current cushion, and that'll be the like if I have, let's say this says I have 650 units, I never want to go below 200. Cushion 450. And that's just an array formula. We could say, if A to A, or actually, if K3 to K equals, dang it, array formula, if K3 to K equals blank, then blank, otherwise K3 to K minus L3 to L. And that'll automatically calculate, as you fill data in, calculates, and let's say you had 222 and your safety stock was 444. You're now minus, you don't have a cushion at all. Right. And then if you're within, and then I could do a formula saying if you're below this safety stock, it'll highlight in red or something. Now the thing is, this is now going to calculate for every single row. Which I guess is fine because I don't know how else to do it. Like when you put in an entry here, it'll show over to the right, but it'll also show every single time that SKU and location come up above it. But I guess that's fine. I mean, it's not too heavy of a calculation. If it does get too heavy, you can always just remove it. Now the safety stock, we can do an array with a VLOOKUP, and we'll look up the SKU and the mid-level here. So that can be an array. This will be SUMIFs. This will have to be a formula that's dropped down. I think cause you can do an array with a SUMIF. You cannot do an array with a SUMIFs with the S on the end, or it's not easy. But if there's only one criteria, so let's think about this. Unit count all. We're gonna SUMIF. No, because I'd have to sum adds and then also sum if deplete and subtract those. Now, if I didn't have add or deplete and just the number of units, if it was plus, it'd be plus. If it was minus, minus. Then I could do a sum if and say, sum if f, if the SKU matches, and that's my only criteria. Which brings me back to the point of, do we want this add deplete, or do we just want to have the user assume if they enter a positive number, it's a add, if they enter a negative number, it's a subtract? Now the add deplete, basically the only benefit there is you can kind of do a filter and say, okay, here's where my add transactions for this SKU and this warehouse. If it was plus or minus, you couldn't really do that filter. You'd have to look at all the positive. It wouldn't really be feasible. So I think we do keep this column header here, and then for the unit count calculation, I could probably put the calculation over here. So it calculates once uniquely for each SKU, and then I can just reference that as a VLOOKUP array here. Because I want to keep everything on this database either a hard-coded data entry or an array formula. And that way you never have to drag formulas down ever. Yeah, that's probably what I'll do. So this will be sum unit count per SKU. and that so we can have the more complicated calculation happening only once for each individual SKU, and then we reference that here, and that's more efficient than doing the sum ifs on every single row here, where you have the SKUs showing up all kinds of different times. Okay, so yep, that's efficient. That's a good decision there. All right, unit count. Now this one, I could do the same thing, but put unit count per location. As a formula. And we could just put like, okay, at this point, these are entered numbers, and then these will be formulas. All right. Now, anything else that's really added would just be new logic. There's some extra fields here if you want, but this does the base thing, which is it'll show you how much it's going to once I have to build all the reports and stuff, but it's going to show you how much inventory is at every location. Um, I can also do, now we'll see how heavy the calculation gets, but I can do some summing by month, possibly. We'll see if it makes sense. But the main thing is at any one point in time, you'll be able to look and see, okay, here's all my locations, here's how much inventory is at each location, and here's my safety stocks for each inventory level, and that's mainly what you're going to do, and that's how you're going to track inventory. Now, if you just have a single location and you just have, you have an initial ad, and then you basically have transactions that add to it and leave the same location, that's fine. Like these could all be warehouse locations, and you add it when you buy inventory and it comes in, and then you just deplete from the same place, that's fine. So it can work for a single location as well. The deplete transaction would just be you're going to have to define something as being sold if you want to track that. And then so that the total balance in the sold category would just be basically everything that's ever been sold. As far as how you account for depleting, or no, I'm sorry. When you deplete something from a location, you deplete it from that location. So let's say you deplete, location 2 here. Um, And if you want to track that as, if you want to track all sales, you can mark something as sold, and you would do an add transaction, and everything that's sold just is every time something is sold, it's an add to the sold um, location. And you just define you define something in your locations that's always going to be representative as sold, or you could put like sold for location 1, sold for location 2. You could do that as well. There's no limit on how many locations can exist here. All right, I feel pretty good about this thing. It's got some new features that I've never done. It's in Google Sheets in general, which I've never done an inventory management sheet just for that. We got some cool formulas here. I believe we got some really efficient architecture. And yeah, this is going to be a good one. Um, so don't forget, check out smarthelping.com for more. I've got all kinds of different things. The inventory management sheet I'm just am working on now. It'll be added to the accounting bundle. It'll also be added to the small business playbook bundle, which is like a lot of different things for tracking, um, receivables, payables, inventory, employee stuff, some budgeting. It's got some financial models as well for 5-year forecasts and cash flow planning. So I'll add it to this, no extra price or no extra increase in any of the prices there. Also, if you want to check out everything I've ever built, um, financial models tab at the top. You can buy everything for $9.99, great deal, and those will all be instantly available to download. Alrighty, yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow. I'm gonna stream again for sure. We'll start doing some of the reports for this tomorrow, and I'm having fun. Alrighty, guys. Take it easy, and it's good to see you guys out here today.